Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you are listening to a Radulich and Broadcasting premiere podcast. This is Damn You Hollywood. And here's your host, otherwise known as Death by Disco Snuggle Badgers, Robert Winfree.
Hi, everybody. How's it going? Hope you're all having a fine, whatever time of the day you are listening to this. I don't know. You could be listening to this at the most bizarre hour possible. Beauty of on-demand audio, folks. Hope you're all doing well. The voice you heard introducing me, as usual, is that of Mark Radulich, the mandated reporter enjoying various stages of mortification. Mark, how are you?
I'm doing well. I have no major complaints. We're here to talk about Maleficent, Mistress of Evil. And I just want to warn everyone ahead of time, if you've tuned into this show to hear Mark say, hey, the big budget, blockbuster, Fortune 500 made company movie is fantastic, and you're here to hear Robert tear it down and us get into a sissy slap fight, this is not going to be that show.
Yeah.
For those of you who like it when we agree and just, take turns, he's Hawk, I'm Animal, and we're just taking turns no-selling the movie and beating it to ever-loving crap, well, then this is the podcast for you. Tell him, Hawk.
Well. Yeah, okay. Bad wrestling references aside.
Take a drink, everybody.
We are discussing the Maleficent, Mistress of Evil, the sequel to the 2014 movie. Yeah, 14. Movie Maleficent. And, let's just... Look, one of the first reviews we did on this... This wasn't even the proper format yet that we have now. Years ago now. I'll jump in the Wayback Machine just a little bit here for you.
How far back?
4 or 5 years.
Ugh.
Hang on, just very briefly.
You were supposed to say way, way back.
I don't know what that's in reference to.
Oh my God, white boy. Go ahead.
It's not like you're not white, Mark.
That's hardly the issue here.
Anyway, the first sort of movie review we did here on the Radulich and Broadcasting Network, as far as just, hey, a movie's out, let's talk about it, was a debate that I essentially moderated between Mark and friend of the show, occasional contributor Pat Mullen, discussing The Amazing Spider-Man 2, which is a terrible movie. Mark took the side of the issue that it's not terrible. Pat tore it apart. I hadn't seen the movie, and at the time I was like, okay, I will moderate, I will ask questions, I will sort of announce a winner, and then we'll move on. Maleficent came out not long after that, and we did kind of the same thing. I had not seen it. I kind of just sat in on not debate, but kind of the review those two did. And then as time went on, the show evolved. It came to the format that we have now that you all tolerate. And now, again, 5 years later, we have the sequel to one of the first movies that was ever discussed in, again, loosely this format. And, this is not a very engaging movie. So, point being, I'm not going to ask Mark why it's on the schedule. I know why it's on the schedule. We reviewed the original. It was a financial hit. It was relatively well received critically and by the general movie-going populace. Even though when we reviewed it, we said, yeah, okay, taking the Wicked approach and applying it to Maleficent, not the worst intellectual exercise in the world, but I don't know why you would take the character of one of the most bombastic, memorable villains and just shoot it in the head in the middle of the street.
Yeah, but at least at that point, if it's one and done, you're like, okay, well, that was an interesting idea. And of all the Disney villains to try this with, I think Maleficent's an interesting one. It's certainly the one that most resembles the Wicked Witch of the West. The other, if you think about some of the other Disney villains, they tend to kind of explain, maybe with the exception of Ursula, they tend to kind of explain where they're coming from and what's motivating them.
Oh, just you wait. Just you wait. Ursula's gonna get a whole 20-minute backstory in the live-action adaptation coming up.
I'm sure. But Maleficent just kind of fucking shows up in Sleeping Beauty. They did a little bit of this with the evil stepmother in Cinderella in the live-action one we did a few years ago.
To the betterment of that movie, I think.
Yeah. You never really got in the cartoon, which is so focused on the mice, it's almost like not crying shame.
Oh God, I can't after watching the live action version of that, I did not deliberately rewatch the animated one. I wound up watching it. I can't remember the full context, but like that's a 80 some odd minute movie, I believe. I swear to you, 60 of it is spent with the stupid mice avoiding the cat.
Yep, it's a Tom and Jerry cartoon with a princess thrown in the middle somewhere.
Yeah, it's nigh unwatchable.
Yeah. So, I mean, unless you're a 4-year-old girl, then it's very watchable. Repeatedly.
Fair enough.
Anyway, but just to sort of run through a couple of these, like the evil stepmother, there's a lot of inference there, and in the live-action adaptation, you get a great sense of why she's the way she is to Cinderella. This is a spurned woman dealing with the weight of having to raise somebody else's child. We get it. You get the idea that, Jafar is trying to... Jafar resents the king, the Sultan. He wants power for himself. You don't need a lot of backstory there.
I will say this, though. When we reviewed Aladdin, I mentioned that fleshing out Jafar giving him an actual worldview of the only one who matters in any given room is the guy the guy with the most power. Everyone else is just ancillary. I scratched my way up from the same place you are, Aladdin, and I will not be denied my final achievement. Mm-hmm. Fleshing him out a little bit there worked and made the movie in that respect a little bit better. Other issues with Aladdin aside, you can see our full review of that.
So you get to Maleficent, and in the Sleeping Beauty cartoon, which is one of the of the golden age of Disney cartoons, the ones that really projected this company into the stratosphere, Sleeping Beauty is one of the better ones.
I think if we're talking purely, like merit-wise, it is the best.
Yeah. It has a great story. It has clear-cut good and evils. You have a hero in Prince Philip. You have your damsel in distress. You really have a great villain in Maleficent. But Maleficent is just evil. She just shows up and is like, I exist to fuck with you, and so I will fuck with you. And it's about kind of getting around that. She's so much more powerful than everybody else in this kingdom. And everything, and so taking sort of just an entity of evil that everyone has accepted as evil with no other motivation than to just be evil, and saying, no, there's something to this. There's something to this person. Let's examine the character of Maleficent. Let's look a little deeper. Let's turn the story on its head even, and say Maleficent isn't the villain of Sleeping Beauty. She's actually the hero, and here's why.
Well, look. They decided to turn her
idea.
They basically turned. I mean, we referenced Wicked a lot, but they basically turned her into the bride from Kill Bill.
Sure, and like there was a lot of. I think I had made the argument at the time. There was a lot of interesting things going on in that film. There's the scene that everyone calls kind of like the rape scene where she wakes up. She's drugged and essentially wakes up with no wings. And so that obviously spurns her hatred of King Stefan and all of that. So look, we get that. We've reviewed it. We can put that movie to bed. And that's the thing. And this is why we're talking about that. At that point, you've told Maleficent's story. You've gotten the other side of it. There's nowhere else to go with this thing. But money talks and bullshit walks. And so they got to go back to the drawing board and figure out, well, how do we extend this story that's ended naturally and quite well? And that brings us to Mistress of Evil, where I'm pretty sure the storyboarding meeting and the script meeting was essentially them looking through various fantasy movies, like Lord of the Rings, and going, what are the things that make these movies work? Put them all in there. So let's make sure there's a big giant war at the end. Let's, complete with flying eagles. Let's make sure that we have another scene-chewing evil queen. Oh, gosh, we got to throw a wedding in there. It's all your favorite fantasy tropes, just slapdash thrown together, and hope it works. And there's my 5-cent review of this movie.
As for the plot of this movie, such as it is, the movie takes place roughly chronologically after the first one. The same period of time has passed, about 5 years. We see Aurora as Queen of the Moors trying to deal with the Fae creatures and her being a human. We see the humans doing nefarious human things because, oh boy, humanity sure is evil. Stealing kind of stuff from the moorlands, and there's some nefarious things going on with it, which we'll get to more in a second. Prince Philip shows up and proposes to Aurora. Aurora accepts. I mean, really, if she just said no, the whole movie could have just ended after 3 minutes and I'd have been happier. But no, Aurora is not a strong, independent woman who don't need no man. She accepts. Maleficent hears about this. She's not terribly thrilled with the idea. Initially refuses to agree to. I mean, it's not entirely clear what outside of sheer force she has to kind of like why she has any say in this apart from, I'm a nearly all-powerful magical being and I can turn you into whatever I want.
She's mom. She has mom power.
Fair enough.
I mean, that's all outright stated in this movie.
I know. I'm being mostly facetious.
Okay.
So Aurora convinces her, you know what, look, let's go meet with Philip's parents. We'll have a dinner. Give us a chance to prove to you that not everyone winds up being, drugged and having their wings stolen from them on the first date. I mean, look, I know you had a bad experience here, Mom, but trust me, this literally happens all the time. You're dealing with the aberration.
Yeah, this is the Adam Sandler bit. They're all gonna laugh at you writ large. They're all gonna laugh at you, Mom. Why don't we go out to the movies? No, they're all gonna laugh at you.
So they show up. We meet Prince Philip's parents. His father, I hate to say it like this, but a somewhat weak-willed king who just it's expressly stated he wants peace. He's more interested in unity and harmony and just doesn't I know he knows war's a bad thing.
He's the king from Alice in Wonderland.
He's the king of hearts. He's the kind of mostly spineless, semi-present. Boy, isn't everything nice, and wouldn't it just be nice if it stayed nice forever?
Here's another way to look at him. Imagine every sitcom dad for at least the last 10 years, probably longer.
Oof. Hang on. Nope. Married with Children was 20 years ago. You are correct.
There you go. So yeah, imagine the doofus can't do nothing right. Women has to depend on his woman because he's a moron. Dad. And you don't know how he became in charge of these things. It's the Bill Cosby bit. I don't know when I lost the power, but I've seen the boss's job, and I don't want it.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Because I think that's from Bill Cosby himself, which is one of my favorite stand-ups ever.
It is. It's his most memorable stand-up. I mean, unless you're really digging into the albums that preceded it, To My Brother Russell, For Whom I Slept With, or Noah Wright. No, Bill Cosby is a very funny fellow. All the stuff he did when he had a really big afro before the Cosby Show.
Anyway, point being, he's just kind of he kind of exists, and Michelle Pfeiffer is the evil queen in this instance, who hates the fairies for reasons that become slightly clearer later. They done killed her brother. She thinks of them as mindless beasts, which is at least partially true. Like, I mean, it's one of those things, like, in all fairness, she kind of has a point. Like, you can't trust the Fae. That's established lore.
Okay.
Anyway.
It's not established in these movies, but go on.
It kind of is. Like, Aurora, they trust Aurora, but, like, if you're the average person.
No, I thought you were making the point of, the Fae can't be trusted.
Well, no, No. The Fae also can't really be trusted.
Okay, I'm going to let you finish. But see, I struggled with the whole thing with her brother being killed by the Fae because, A, it wasn't firmly established that that's actually what happened. He just disappeared, and it was inferred that the Fae killed him, and that's where she got her racism from.
Yeah, we can touch back on that later. Anyway, she doesn't like the Fae. She wants war. She thinks that somewhere within the moors is everything they'll need to survive, despite living in a thriving kingdom. Like, we're not dealing with a kingdom on the edge of collapse here.
No.
But this is part of my issue with the writing. Anyway, they all meet up for dinner. It's a tense political dinner, by which I mean nobody really gets along. And look, the human customs don't really make sense to the Fae. And Maleficent winds up going, enough of this. You will not take what's mine.
Well, essentially, it's every bad, liberal daughter with liberal parents brings home her conservative boyfriend with the conservative parents, and the first words out of someone's mouth is abortion. It's terrible, right? And the conversation goes downhill from there.
Pretty much. That's a fair assessment. King Stefan falls under a curse. Now, it's eventually revealed. I'll just bring it up here because who cares? They eventually reveal that it's the work of his wife who cursed him. She stole the spinning wheel and spindle that Maleficent used to curse Aurora, and detached the spindle, stabbed him with it when Maleficent was present, blamed her, and everyone just kind of went along with, well, she did it before to an innocent baby. Why wouldn't she do it to our king, who none of us are really even sure what he does anyway?
What happened was Queen Ingrid, who is Michelle Pfeiffer, put it on Reddit and 4chan, so immediately everyone believed it.
Fair enough. Aurora believes that she's responsible for this. Maleficent takes off, heads out, is then sniped with ungodly accuracy considering you're basically slingshotting a BB. She is sniped by Tom Holland's female identical twin sister. Like that freaked me out a little bit. Like I looked at the actress and went, huh. So they couldn't get Tom Holland, so they cast a woman who looks almost exactly like him. A little freaky. She falls into the river, gets swept out into the ocean, and then, your big twist, there's more creatures like her, specifically, that choose this moment to show up, because of course they do. Michelle Pfeiffer really wanted Maleficent's head, but couldn't get it because, hey, there's more of them, so they further prepare for war. Her little, mad scientist, Dr. Mengele dude, has discovered that if you mix iron powder with some extract from a flower that only grows on the graves of fairies, you get this slightly different red iron powder that contact with will just obliterate a fairy. Like they get Thanos snapped. And so she's now, I've got a weapon that'll really work on all of these fairies, and we can finally be rid of them. Maleficent is introduced to the rest of the Dark Fae, with Ed Skrein as a slightly scarred-up, warmongering version of representing, the humans have robbed us, and they've killed us, and they've driven us underground, despite the fact that we wound up in this cave that's an ecological marvel of being able to have all these different biomes right next to each other.
They somehow ended up on planet Genesis. I don't know how they managed to do this in a fucking cave.
Yeah.
In fact,
that makes no. That was out there.
So, hey, just 1 second on that, because actually, Planet Genesis actually isn't totally accurate. It's actually the cave where they tested Genesis from Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan.
It's the Genesis cave. That's where they wind up.
Yeah, and amazingly, people have always joked about like the Star Wars planets being only one ecosystem per planet. Like, look, it's a planet of only winter. Look, it's a planet of only desert, and it goes on and on like that. This literally was split into various seasons and ecosystems all within this one cave. So it's like, oh, look, these particular dark fae like jungle, so here's a jungle part. These like deserts, here's a desert part. Like, wait, what?
Yeah. Right next to each other.
Caves don't work that way.
Yeah. Anyway, she is also... So we have Ed Skrein, who's like, hey, we should be able to fly under the sun. Never mind, this whole thing's completely illuminated, and none of them are suffering the long-term side effects of sunlight deprivation.
God, even the Dark Crystal fucking show, had some of the...
Yeah, the Grottons. They were different from the other Gelfling.
Thank you. I couldn't remember the word Gelfling. Yeah, the Gelflings that lived in the cave, their eyes had to adjust to sunlight because they had already adjusted to being in a cave without sunlight for extended periods of time. Which tells you the different writing levels of intelligence in the writing between the Dark Crystal, Age of Resistance, and Maleficent, Mistress of Evil.
We are also introduced to Chetwele Ejiofor, whose name I'm sure I'm entirely positive I mispronounce that gentleman's name every time I say it.
I would have called him Ted Smith, so you're better than me.
Who is of the opinion that, you know what? I'm happy to take my check and dump exposition. And B, look, you found a human that you raised and that you cared for, and we don't have to... Maybe we don't have to exist in eternal conflict. And everyone looks at him and goes... Yeah, you know what happens to characters who express a desire for peace in this franchise? It ain't good. So Maleficent also gets a little bit of like, okay, you are the last descendant of the Dark Fae that have specific ties to this Phoenix entity, because reasons. And that's why you have all this power, and the rest of us, we don't. We might have bits of power pursuant to being strong fae, but you Maleficent have the green fire and will lead us to the promised land and reclaim our. I don't know. None of this makes sense.
This is a classic example of how sometimes too much deconstruction and too much exposition for a character utterly ruins that character.
This is all set against the backdrop of. And by the way, the entire time Maleficent is being exposited to, no dialogue. She says nothing. What's going on in the castle? Again, we have the preparations for war that are kind of going on behind closed doors. You have the wedding that they're preparing for between Aurora and Philip. You have the Queen trying to keep secret that, she, cursed her husband and is now trying to instigate a war, commit genocide, all that good stuff. You also get, again, the other character that I think bears a little bit of discussion. I kind of jokingly referred to him as like the goblin version of Joseph Mengele, who's been experimenting with various fey creatures and fey plant life. He's the one responsible for creating this bioweapon. I mean, look, in all fairness, if you have access to a weapon that literally is only harmful to your enemies, that's incredibly valuable. But the fact that at the end of the movie, that guy is just sitting there at the wedding cheering along like, yeah, sure.
Well, it was implied that he was under hypnosis from the spell on the spindle.
Yeah, I don't buy it.
Okay, you don't have to buy it. It's not good. It's in the movie, though.
Look, he does show up and he stares at the spindle and he reaches for it and then shakes himself out of it and then resumes experimenting and I mean, again, just sure, war criminal, no problem. Anyway, Aurora eventually finds out what really happened. She gets locked in her tower. They announce the wedding. They invite all the creatures from the Moorlands who show up, go into the church, and are then massacred with the iron powder. Because, hey, look, when has a wedding in a church in a fantasy setting ever gone right? You know? it just, for some reason, it never seems to work. The Dark Fae, sorry, I forgot one point. Maleficent feels when they start desecrating the grave of the fairies. Shows up and is just like, nah, freaking humans, man. We can't rest in peace. They've destroyed our sacred location. And Ed Skrein is there and he's like, yeah, man, humans suck. We should totally wipe them out. And the humans have laid a trap. They show up and try to attack them. And Chefwili Ejiofor shows up and takes all the bullets heroically for Maleficent. And dies back in the Dark Phase cavern, and his death actually like further spurs Maleficent toward the dark side, apparently, because she gets Sith eyes for some reason. So the Dark Fae mount a giant offensive against the castle. They run into all of the weaponry and some of the planning that was designed specifically to countermeasure them. It doesn't work well. Aurora tries to save the Fae creatures that are locked within the chapel. One of the three colored fairies, by which I mean one of the pink, blue, or green ones. The blue one, I believe.
It's Leslie Manville, because Imelda Staunton is the pink one, Juno Temple was the green one, so yeah, it's Leslie Manville who sacrifices herself by jumping in the piano.
Yeah, because when the powder encounter, it just removes the Fae's spirit from whatever it is. So if you dump it on the Fae spirit that exists within a dandelion, for example, you get just a dandelion absent the Fae spirit. So she dives down the pipe organ in question. When she gets hit with it, the essence of whatever flower she is just sprouts all through the organ.
She's apparently a flittle. That's her name.
Whatever.
That's knotgrass, thistlewit, and flittle.
I will never for the life of me understand why they changed their names from the original in this context. I'm not asking you to defend that position, okay? I'm just saying I think it's stupid.
I don't disagree with you.
So they get saved. Maleficent shows up and wreaks fiery doom, sort of, because we can't act. I say sort of just because, for a war sequence, they went really, and I understand why. Like, you're trying to appeal to kids, so anytime the Fae die, they just get Thanos snapped. And you don't actually see any of the humans die. They just kind of fall off of really high places, and we don't see impact.
Okay. So I know that this only came out earlier this year, which means they couldn't have outright copied it. But I feel like somebody who wrote this scene had the March on the Red Kingdom in mind when they wrote this scene of Maleficent bringing fiery doom to this particular castle. Because it's one of these deals where it's very reminiscent, like a cover song of a great song that a very heavy hitting, heartfelt song, covered by Kids Bop. That's how this scene of Maleficent taking out this castle and just throwing green fire everywhere resembles Khaleesi, her real name, I can't remember it. Dragon attack on the Red Keep after they'd already surrendered. At least in this one, they hadn't surrendered just yet. That comes in a little bit, but yeah, they clearly, somebody in that room clearly wanted this to be Maleficent just going buck wild and torching people, and they were like, "It's a fucking Disney film for children. You can't do that." And they utterly gutted this scene. Yeah,
so again, any Dark Fae that dies, this is also further hilarious, by the way. They don't just turn into the birds that they're supposed to be, because they all have wings and color schemes that are evocative of different birds throughout the world. Any other fae that gets hit just turns into whatever it is, absent its fairy spirit. But I don't know, maybe they just thought it would be too stupid if the one that's supposed to be a barn owl gets hit by this powder and just suddenly, hey, a barn owl. I mean, it might have been better if they'd leaned into the silliness rather than just, disintegration, pixel effects. I don't know. I'm just speculating.
Barn owls falling out of the sky would have been hilarious.
Look, two people are, you've got a couple of you got a couple of, hawks, hawk dark fae flying next to each other. One of them gets hit, the other one looks over and sees, instead of, a fellow warrior, now it's just a hawk kind of going, I don't know. Anyway, so Maleficent shows up, wreaks fiery doom. Aurora shows up, talks her off of the precipice of something. Like, she's already blasted the majority of... but no, if she kills the queen, she will have gone too far.
Sure. There's the one person that actually deserves it.
The person that actually deserves it. I mean, Prince Philip makes a big show at one point of stopping Ed Skrean's character from killing his friend, the general,
who was trying to kill all the Fae and wanted to from the beginning of the film.
He distrusts them from the beginning, but when Philip presents evidence that, hey, we're being manipulated, none of your men have to be dying right now, he kind of goes, oh, well, that sucks. Like, we shouldn't be doing this then. But he is the very typical soldier following orders kind of thing. Anyway, he stops Ed Skrean from killing him and then makes a big show about going, you know what? I will not have Fae blood on my hands, and we don't need to fight each other, etc. Insert every pseudo-inspirational speech from every character in that same situation ever. Ed Skrean decides, yeah, you know what? Maybe not all humans are bad. They kind of stop fighting, and Maleficent shows up, confronts the queen. Aurora talks her out of succumbing to the darkness of the Phoenix Force. Michelle Pfeiffer tries to shoot Aurora with one of these dust-filled arrows. Maleficent takes the hit for her, gets Thanos snapped. Aurora does the old Tony Stark over the ashes of Tom Holland as he floats off into the distance. But in this instance, because Maleficent is connected to the Phoenix of some variety, she reconstitutes herself as a giant phoenix, winds up saving Aurora from falling to her death, plows into the ground, leaves a giant furrow like 18, 20 feet long. They're all saved. Michelle Pfeiffer's character is inexplicably confronted by all the murderous Dark Fae. The one character who, like, you know what, maybe we really should kill you, and instead is just, like, thrown out a window. Falls down through a bunch of flowers that she's allergic to, because, boy, that sure is appropriate comeuppance, and then is turned into a goat by Maleficent.
Sure. Hey, look, my daughter thought that was a hoot.
That really would just sum up this movie. A 7-year-old thinks it's funny.
She's 8, but yes.
I apologize. An 8-year-old thinks it's hilarious.
There you go.
So Philip and Aurora do get married. Maleficent promises to stick around for a bit before going off with the rest of her people, but promises to return for the christening of their child, which...
Wink.
God, that's so stupid. So Philip and Aurora rule now a united kingdom of Allfield, or whatever the hell it was, and the Moorlands. Maleficent flies off with young Dark Fae children, and somebody responsibly decides to teach them barrel rolls. And scene. Somewhere along the line, she broke the curse of the spinning wheel, which freed the king from it, and now he's back and proud, and I don't know what.
Doesn't care that his wife's a goat.
Actually has the only somewhat funny line in this entire movie for me. They see the goat. Philip somehow miraculously just knows, oh boy, that's my mom. Goes, is that my mother? The Raven character, isn't his name just like Diablo, but they don't want to say it that way, so they just constantly mispronounce it.
It's written in the synopsis as Diablo.
Yeah. I believe originally he is like Diablo, which is supposed to be just devil.
Sure.
So anyway, random Irish Raven, because that is his accent when he's in human form, says, no, don't worry about it. She can totally turn her back into a human. Does kind of the face that's like, I don't know about that, maybe. And then you hear from off screen the king, as he is now back in the land of the living, going, well, only if we want her to. Like, okay, I know you had a political marriage, buddy. But, oh, God, that was such a... But... So anyway, fade to black. Crappy song plays over the end credits. I don't even know where to start with this.
Look, there's no reason to belabor this. The movie looks fine. It's a very colorful, magical fantasy landscape. It's shot fairly competently. The costumes.
If only I could say the same thing about the writing.
Well, I don't want to just be 100% negative because plenty of people worked on this film and did a good job of making it look decent. But that's the problem. There's a lot of sizzle going on here, not a tremendous amount of steak. So I'm going to try to separate the good from the bad here. It looks great, good to great. It's very pretty. It's very vibrant. This is a place where I don't mind spending 2 hours, and I really have to put that out there because I've seen a lot of movies this year where certain landscapes and settings are dreary or drab. They are not inviting. These are not places I want to be in the movie for great lengths of time. So when a movie like this kind of gets it right, where even the stupid cave, look, the cave is fucking ass retarded, but if I can let go of my preconceived conceptions of what a fucking cave should look like, it's at least fun to look at. Though having magical, if someone's like, well, they're magical creatures, they probably just converted it to meet their needs. Sure, whatever. And again, nature doesn't work that way, but I don't fucking care. This is a movie with fairies in it, so even the cave sequences are interesting. This is a colorful, magical place that I didn't mind looking at for 2 hours. Performances. Michelle Pfeiffer is the best part of this movie. She's just acting circles around Angelina Jolie. More on that in just a second. Elle Fanning is just kind of, you're a princess. You're like literally every princess traipsing through Walt Disney World. Just be that. Like, okay, she's fine. She remembered her lines. She's a competent actress. So is Prince Philip, who has all the personality of a fucking mop, by the way. But they all, they were kind of, I feel like they were directed, hey, you're fairy tale prince and princess. Just be that. And it was adequate. The guy playing King John's hilarious. Oh God!
I'll give you that. That guy seems to be. He at least seemed to like. He feels like he's the only one in on the joke.
Yeah, Robert Lindsay, who's an English actor known for his stage and television work with the Royal Shakespeare Company. He did something called Bramley Hedge. Some other stuff here. I don't want to click on the link just yet, but he's great. He's fun for the little bit that he's in the film. He's fine. Warwick Davis, who people might remember from Willow, was Lickspittle.
He's also crap. I can't remember the character's name now. He's Professor Flitwick in all the Harry Potter movies as well.
Yeah. There you go. He was fine as Dr. Mengele. He plays his part well. So it's like and again, Michelle Pfeiffer, who got to be the evil witch basically of this thing, just the scenery chewing, overacting, Disney cartoon villain, seemed to be the way her character was written. She's great. I loved watching Michelle Pfeiffer. She's the best part of the movie. Unfortunately, one of the worst parts of this movie went to fucking Angelina Jolie. Maleficent sucks. And
yeah.
You know, like, and that's not Angelina Jolie's fault. I think she's doing her level best with a poorly written character. But everything that made Maleficent cool, everything that made her interesting, everything that made the first movie work as well as it did, they gutted from this character. Again,
I'm not exaggerating, guys, when I say she probably has less than 10 lines of dialogue in this entire 2-hour movie.
For those people who listen to the show who are also wrestling fans, this is what they did to Maleficent is essentially what the WWE does to cool heels when they turn them face. Okay, and this is why like half of them like fall apart. Like just as an example, and I really don't want to get into a debate over this particular character, but I think he's a good example of this. So Seth Rollins turns on the Shield and is a pretty cool heel. No,
he's not.
He's an interesting heel, and he's doing interesting heel things until he gets injured. Then he comes back as like the sympathetic face, and I've said this before in our wrestling reviews, he's utterly beige. He's the least interesting thing going on Raw right now, and that says something because there's not a lot interesting on that particular show.
The only interesting thing about him was when they made his relationship with Becky Lynch. Like, they had to attach him to genuinely the biggest act they have in Becky Lynch to try and get people interested in him.
Well, unfortunately, there's no Becky Lynch for Maleficent because they gutted all the interesting stuff in this character. Like, now that she's the hero, and this is why I said doing a sequel was a bad idea. There's nothing interesting about her. There's no arc for her here. They essentially sent the best villain they had on the hero's journey. Which, again, there's not a whole lot of an arc here for this character. She starts out not trusting humans. She made an exception for the one baby she raised. And it almost out of guilt. And she still calls her Beastie, okay? So, like, the one human she's willing to tolerate.
In fairness, that at this point is also... It's established that's a term of endearment at this point as it relates to Aurora.
Sure, I'm not saying she's being abusive, but she really doesn't trust humans. She doesn't like humans.
Gets to murder a bunch of them.
Yeah. And things didn't end well for King Stefan and his crew, if I remember correctly. So when the movie starts up, she still doesn't. And then the first plot point of this is just to set her up as, as the sort of the exiled hero. And then she's like, they made a big deal about this in the trailer. Where like, you've been with the humans for too long. You have to take care of your own people. They don't spend nearly enough time, which is weird because it feels like they spent forever just doing nothing. That sequence when she's with the Dark Fae, fucking zero happens. You've just got Charlie Etouffee fucking just espousing mindless, blithering dialogue for to no end, and Ed Skrein just sneering on camera. He was the only decent part of that entire sequence. He at least had some life to him. You never get a sense of what's going on with the Dark Fae. They're in exile living in a cave.
We would really like to reclaim our place in they couldn't actually say reclaim our place in the sun because that's a phrase Hitler used all the time in his speeches. But we'd really like to, reclaim our homeland. Like, things don't look that bad here. Is there some impetus for this?
That's what I'm saying. Like your cave society seems to be working fairly well. Like, there's kind of an internal debate in this society.
Your cave is better than like my house, man.
You have like growing fruit in your cave and shit. Like you guys are a wonder.
I wanted a bunch of them to get up there and go, this kind of sucks. I want to go back to the cave.
Well, that's the thing. Like they don't really clearly establish why they need to leave the cave. Like it'd been one thing if she walks in the cave and they're living in squalor and misery, and like we're dying, Maleficent. We don't know what to do next, and there's a movement amongst us to attack the humans, which again would have been interesting if the humans weren't such shits. So
I would have accepted even a bit where during that giant lore dump, the guy goes, yeah, this is non-sustainable. Like, we don't have to be in squalor necessarily. Just make it clear that where we are now is not great, and it's not going to get better. Like, we can't better our situation
I would
here.
have accepted your solar creatures. We are creatures that thrive on sunlight, and we've been trapped in this cave, and now we're dying. And if we don't leave this cave, there's going to be none of us left. And so we're between a rock and a hard place. Fight the humans and fight for our place in the sun, literally, or die in this cave. There's no sense of urgency at all in this movie. And again, the whole time Angelina Jolie is there, she's just mouth agape, taking it all in.
Again, I don't think any spoken dialogue outside of like, no, I hate people at one point.
And the thing
No,
is,
humans suck.
Maleficent has always been portrayed as like deliciously evil. She's just reveling in it. Angelina Jolie actually did a really good job as Maleficent in the first go around. Here, she might as well have not had the horns on. This is just she's basically like Alice in Wonderland. She's just like, oh, whoa, what's going on, yeah? And then when she's properly pissed off enough, she does a really good job of again being Dark Phoenix. But then that's it. And then the whole that whole tacked on war scene was like, well, it's a fantasy movie and we really have no ending to this thing, so we'll just have everybody fight until we decide to stop. That's how the movie ends. They just both sides decide to stop fighting. That's all. And we all live happily ever after, even though you've trapped the Moors and killed half of them, and you've killed all the dark, half the Dark Fae, and then a bunch of humans got lit on fire, and it's like, what are you gonna do? At the end of people didn't get along this well at the end of either World War.
Not even close.
The Civil War didn't end this amicably.
And the Civil War ended with a deliberate, what's the word? The federal government declared a amnesty for people who fought in the Confederate Army. There was a very concerted attempt by the powers that be that, okay, we preserved the Union. Now, if we don't actually act like we're all part of the same country, we're just going to do this again later. So we're not going to nobody, again, people who committed actual war crimes, okay, we have that discussion. But if you just fought on the other side of this, we're not going to hold that against you.
Right.
They very much tried from a system standpoint to not be, a former Confederate soldier, boy, we should lock them up, because they knew that would just perpetuate things, and there were plenty of problems anyway.
There are people still holding a grudge about the Civil War. It's 2019. There are people still holding a grudge about the end of World War II. It's 2019, people. But yeah, these fucking people, these enlightened folk, the Moors who nearly went through a genocide, and the humans are just like, it's fine. We turned Michelle Pfeiffer into a goat. All is forgiven. Okay. It's come on. So, good things about the movie. It looks pretty. Almost everyone gives a good performance for the material they had. Bad is the plot is shit, and Maleficent's characterization does a huge disservice to that character.
I feel like everyone's performance is probably what was asked of them.
Yeah. Well, I think Michelle Pfeiffer, carries the movie.
Well, hang on.
Atlas, by the way, she carries it.
Well, look, I bring that up just because I imagine she was told, you're the Wicked Queen, chew the scenery.
Yeah.
And she goes, okay, I can do that.
Right.
And
so, I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure his motivation, the director at one point was like, do you remember when you did Catwoman and Tim Burton made you do 106 cartwheels and then end it punctuated with a meow until you got it right? Yeah, channel that if you please.
Oh, God. Batman Returns is not a good movie.
No, it's the worst one by far.
No.
Yes, it is. I don't want to have this debate, though.
Look, it sucks. I would rather watch that than Batman and Robin.
Well, you're no fun.
No, I'm plenty fun. Batman and Robin is just that unwatchable.
Can we agree that 3 is better than 2?
Yes.
Okay. I'll
Absolutely. Yes, we can absolutely agree. Batman Forever is better than Batman Returns. I will absolutely agree to that.
So, anything else about this piece of shit movie?
I agree with you. There's bits of it that look nice. There's some of it that looks overly. There's some visuals that are just overwrought. Like it's just, hey, how much crap can we fit into this shot? It muddles it. It's just not a good look. Some of it is there are good visuals. I want to make that clear. I feel like when they wrote this, I mean, Angelina Jolie gets a producer credit. I imagine that like when they showed her part of the cut, and it's like, okay, you have no actual dialogue, and all the interesting bits of scenery we're giving to Michelle Pfeiffer. It's like, fine, give me a producer credit.
Yeah.
Because, full disclosure, I haven't seen the first one yet. I imagine once Disney Plus gets up and running, at some point I'll spend enough time to. I'll watch it at that point. But there's only enough room for one person to choose scenery here. We have a limited amount of scenery, and rather than be socialist about this and distribute it evenly, it's all going to Michelle Pfeiffer. And so Angelina Jolie is reduced to kind of just, existing.
Yeah.
They almost could have. Here's kind of the crazy thing about this. They could have basically written her character out of this movie outside of her big return at the end to help facilitate the stopping of the fighting.
You know, I would have forgiven a lot of the garbage in this movie had they actually killed Maleficent. Because that scene where she takes a bullet for Aurora and dies, like, my daughter was, like, was heartbroken. And, you know, it was, because she doesn't think she's coming back because she's 8. You know, she's like, and there was a small look. I'm not saying I didn't think she was coming back. I am saying, like, in my mind, I'm like, wow, if they really made a brave choice and actually killed this character and kept her dead, I'm willing to forgive everything else about this movie because that's fucking. Oh, there she is. She's a giant bird. Never mind.
Well, I mean, the unfortunate downside is if they had killed her, they couldn't leave the door open for a sequel because, yay.
Maleficent Returns.
Oh, stop it.
What? It's a fantasy movie. Aurora, abandons Philip and goes on the search to bring Maleficent back because, she has to go on a fuck-all journey to find the thing that does the thing to bring Maleficent back. She's running around with a canister of ashes. There's a scene where she, falls down a shaft of some sort, and she loses the canister, and she thinks, oh no, Maleficent's ashes. And, it turns out she didn't drop them, and, and Aurora, has to fight trolls and whatnot, and she gets help from the Moors along the way who are with her, and finally, the big return, she brings Maleficent back. Come on.
I hate you so much right now.
Michelle Pfeiffer's sending fucking armies after Aurora. Get her back!
Well, yeah, that's really kind of the crux of the issue is if they have her die that way, you have to have some kind of closure to Michelle Pfeiffer's character. And in that moment, the only thing that they can do is have Aurora shove her off the cliff. And they don't want to have Aurora kill somebody.
Sure.
I'm not entirely even sure how I would have gone about fixing this movie. Like, that's one of the things about this. We try, if we have issues with a thing, like with a film or a plot point or whatnot, like, okay, how could we make it better?
Right.
Like, I think the only way to make this movie better is, like, a total rewrite from the ground up.
Yeah, not do it this way.
Let's take a completely different conceptual stance on this. We want to do a Maleficent sequel. Okay, how about she's, one of a whole race of people who've been driven underground by the evil humans, and Michelle Pfeiffer wants to kill them all, and okay, let me stop you right there. No.
I honestly think the issue becomes the Maleficent trying to live in human society and it not working, and and her deciding she's going to go away all on her own without having been framed for a crime she doesn't commit. And
there's plenty of ways to bully her or ostracize her or just help continue to. I mean, she doesn't want to be there anyway, so just reinforce that without being oh, she cursed the king,
right?
And maybe make her uncomfortable,
drive her away, have the Dark Fae come up from the cave, like now is the time, like have a sort of an established lore that part of the reason Maleficent isn't among the Dark Fae, she knows they're there, but there was a falling out. She was cast away as a witch because she had these powers, something along those lines. The Dark Fae don't like her either.
You know what I'd go with that, actually. The Dark Fae tried to they know she's they've always seen her as a weapon. Mm-hmm. She didn't want to be a weapon. She winds up, topside where she can just be a Fae, and then, there's the whole stuff with King Stefan and everything, and so now not knowing where else to go, she's kind of just depressed and bumming around, and the people, the humans do something, still reveal that they do something stupid and terrible. Like, Michelle Pfeiffer can still be a terrible character.
Right.
And then then the Dark Fae, bring this to her and now have a proposal. Like, okay, they're, manipulating your daughter, and they've done all these bad things to us, and she's still secretly trying to develop weapons that will annihilate us, and can we have our nuke back now, please?
The other side of doing
it is this time she goes, they will not. I was happy. I had made my peace with leaving her in the human society because she's a human and I'm not, and I'm heartbroken about this and I'm angry, but I had made elements of my peace with it. But no, if they're going to be that terrible and she's in danger, then yeah, sure, I'll be your nuclear weapon. Let's go ham on these people.
I think the other way you can do it, like I said, is Maleficent sort of, do the wedding at the beginning. She gives Aurora away, and she's like, well, I don't want to go back to the moors because that's depressing, and I don't want to stay here because I don't want to be a human and I don't want to have to deal with this. So she just kind of goes off, and now with Maleficent gone and no magic around, this is when the Faes figure out now is the time to strike, and they overrun the kingdom. Aurora escapes with Philip. They go off on an adventure. They try to find Maleficent, and now Maleficent has to, sort of against her own wishes and desires, but knowing that this is the right thing to do for Aurora, has to go liberate this kingdom. And I think that's one approach.
Yeah, there's a few other ways you could have gone about this. I don't know how they arrived at this one.
And honestly, like I said, I think they sat down and they did, they put words associated with fantasy genre on a board and kind of constructed a plot out of it. This is the most basic bitch plot for a fantasy movie I've ever seen. It's so, it's not that it's illogical. I mean, it's logical. You have a motivated character who wants to destroy a perceived enemy, and she concocts a plot to, if this is one of those movies where if even one thing goes wrong, the whole thing falls apart. So it's the whole plot is just a contrivance. It is, it's everything magically falling into place just as it needs to be for her to get what she wants, which isn't really interesting to me.
My thing about that, and you've brought this up a little bit, I think, when you were criticizing The Dark Knight, like that the Joker's plan doesn't make any sense. I take umbrage with that a little bit, just because I tend to look at. I'll reference The Dark Knight specifically. I think in that case, it's just having proper contingencies.
Mm-hmm.
Joker puts himself in a scenario where he can't lose. He either unmasks and disgraces or kills or whatever he decides to do in the moment the Batman after he shows up to try and save Harvey. He actually either succeeds at that or he gets locked up, in which case, then I can do this other thing for the mob that I've been contracted to do. So it's more about, okay, I have three paths. I have, three different reasonable outcomes. What am I going to do in A? What am I going to do in B? What am I going to do in C? And then when one of them happens, everyone else goes, oh, he planned the whole thing. It was so intricate. Like, no, there's just about three things that could have happened. And I had something loosely outlined to deal with each of them.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine. I kind of...
hang on.
Thinking about Joaquin Phoenix's Joker and thinking about some of the most recent
that's
Joker...
a different...
Well, no.
That's a different kettle of fish.
Well, no. I'm going with your point of underneath the madness is the mind of a genius at work. And so the interesting dynamic between Joker and Batman is you have two people, both of whom are capable of fourth-dimensional, multi-step process thinking. But one is an agent of anarchy, and the other one is an agent of order. And so in creating these, 4 and 5 step processes and thinking in 4 dimensions, you have one who, as you said, has a number of different contingency plans for how things might work out, ready to go, just, for whatever which way it does go. And the other one who's disarming these plots at will, because he, so it's a race to who can outthink the other. And I'm fine with that framing of the Batman-Joker relationship.
And my point with that is just, there's a line in this where Michelle Pfeiffer's character says, everything's working out perfectly.
Sure.
Like, okay, I'm genuinely curious. I want at one point, one of these evil characters with their intricate plots, I want to see the flowchart.
Well, I mean, that's the thing.
Like,
This whole movie falls apart.
This
whole movie falls apart if Aurora just says, yeah, I believe you really wouldn't poison the guy. Curse the guy.
Like if Aurora doesn't, I mean, she can, well, sort of, because she can still whip up her kingdom to war. She doesn't need Aurora for that.
No, but the whole thing sort of, the pin in the whole thing was framing Maleficent and driving her away.
In a lot of respects, yeah. I mean, the other big issue, I mean, I joke, the whole thing falls apart if Aurora goes, I don't believe in the institution of marriage. I think it's a tool of the patriarchy, and I'd really just rather not.
Aurora, will you marry me? No. I'm already a queen. Be gone, Philip, before the trees tear you apart.
Okay, I mean, again, jokes aside, I want to see one of these evil characters with their complicated schemes. I want the flowchart. I want to know what happens if something, like, I want them to have one moment where they just sit back and go, boy, it all really worked out. And then someone else go, well, okay, but what about X, Y, and Z? And then just go, oh, no, here look at this. And then just point to their plan. Like, I was ready for 14 different possible outcomes across these different axes of choice. The fact that it worked out as well as it did is a minor miracle, but I was ready.
You wanted like an Ocean's 11 scene, complete with an Asian flipping onto a high precipice?
Well, again, I'm happy with the flowchart, and
Okay.
I mean that in the most literal sense. Like, there's a giant whiteboard with all the arrows going on. Like, okay, if X happens, Y. If X1 happens, then we go to Z. If X3 happens, we go all the way back up here at a point. Yeah, I want that. Like, just these people are planning intricate things. The fact that they're hinging them all across 4 different points when, well, if the one thing I need to happen doesn't happen, I've wasted all my time and energy.
If I ever am involved in making a movie, I'm going to put that in there, but I'm going to leave it in no matter what, but I want to show it to a test audience first just to see how many of them punch their neighbor.
I imagine all of them. Look, that's a me thing, okay? And I have long made my peace with the fact that I am not at all representative of the generalized audience.
All right. Anything else? I want to bring this up real quick because I forgot to mention it before. So the Gerda character, who is the chick playing the pipe organ, killing all the Moors.
Look, again, Tom Holland's identical female twin sister.
that entire sequence was so stupid it should be studied.
Oh man, was it like they don't set that up at all? It's just like, hey, go. They just needed an excuse for her not to just douse the entire place in iron powder and just kill them all within 20 seconds. So
why it had to be an elaborate fucking Batman villain-esque organ throwing pumpkin bombs?
Bear in mind, when we say Batman villain-esque, we mean like Adam West Batman.
Yeah, this was straight out of the fucking 60s. And the whole thing is like, it would have been kind of okay if she had just been like, put the mask on, she hits the F key, out shoots giant powder everywhere. It's a snowstorm of red powder, and and they're all starting to melt like wicked witches. Fine. She's playing it in the whole song. I was waiting for Freddie Mercury to walk out going, I want it all.
Look, Freddie Mercury would have. Well, Freddie Mercury's raw charisma would have overshadowed everything else in this movie if they'd used that.
Sure. First person I can think of that would have come out to a piano. In any case.
But no, your point is well taken. It's a stupid, stupid sequence. Like, boy, not only do I know how to play the organ, which is a deeply complicated instrument, it brings me satisfaction on a level that the touch of another human being never could. Like, I do not understand.
I now need video of you playing an organ in a cape, by the way.
I can't play the organ.
I thought you said you could.
No, I know it's a deeply complicated instrument. I can't play the organ.
Okay, never mind then.
If I could, then yes, I would. I'd find a stupid mask and I'd wear the hat from the 20s movie and put on the cape and I'd give you some stupid rendition or version of Phantom of the Opera.
Perfect. Please learn the organ. All right.
Want to pay for the lessons? I will.
Stop asking me for money, you homeless person. Anyway, so just that her death sequence was also over the top stupid, but that whole scene was like, again, this to me felt like people put up storyboards of cool scenes and kind of wrote a movie around it. Like, let's do a thing with an organ that's like shooting pumpkin bombs full of dust. Cool. Let's do a big war sequence with the Hawk people from fucking Flash Gordon.
I knew you were going to do that.
versus What's-Her-Face from Game of Thrones and the Red Keep. Can we do that? Can we do Flash Gordon versus Game of Thrones?
Okay, for the record, since you have once again failed to remember the character of Daenerys Targaryen.
No, the other character. The one who does the Walk of Shame.
Oh, Cersei Lannister.
That's the one, Cersei Lannister. So yeah, you have the Hawk people versus Cersei Lannister. You have this Batman-esque organ thing going on. It's just retarded.
This movie is not, and believe it or not, this movie is not stupid enough. Like, if they had really leaned into this, it might have made it more watchable.
But that's the thing, is I think like the people working on this movie, this is one where I'm not entirely sure this was done in by studio notes. I just think I think everyone kind of did their average level best to put out a movie, to just put out this soulless. So here's where I'm going with this. The Red Letter Media guys often talk about how film is product, buy more product, and this just feels like cranberry flavored Sprite. It's just another thing on the shelf. We hope people buy it. If they don't, there's something else coming along shortly that people will buy, and this one will be fentanyl flavored Sprite, and everyone will buy fentanyl flavored Sprite. It doesn't, that's we already know that. But maybe they'll try the cranberry Sprite. It's fine. It doesn't matter. We just keep stocking the shelves full of Sprite of various flavors, and of course the original flavored Sprite. And that's how this movie feels. It's just a thing Disney threw up on the shelf. Maybe it succeeds, maybe it doesn't, and everyone kind of working on it. It's like, look, we're not purposely gonna, shoot this movie. We're not purposely gonna do a bad job, but no one's going out of their fucking way to produce, Othello here. They're just like, it's a fucking Disney sequel. It'll work or it won't, and we'll all get paid. We'll get paychecks for as long as they're paying people to make movies for movie theaters, and, we'll go home and hug our children.
All right, you assume a lot of good faith on the part of the people making this in that respect, and I have no evidence to the contrary. So I will just kind of go along with you on that, I guess.
Are you really having a difficult time with what I just said?
No, again, I just you mentioned no one's going out of their way to make Othello here, which is true. I'm not giving them credit for knowing what Othello is.
Oh, wow, is that a picayune point?
Hey, have we met?
Fair enough. And on that note,
let's move on.
Here comes the money.
Here comes the money.
Here we go.
Money talk.
Here comes the money. Money, money, money.
Dollar, dollar. Dollar, dollar. Ching, ching, bling, bling.
Did you stop the recording again?
Yes, I did. I'm dumb. All right. On a budget of $185 million, this thing at the time of this recording has made $157.3 million. It obviously won the weekend. I still don't understand. I think it's Sony who made Zombieland 2. Let me see if I'm right about that.
It's Sony or Universal. I can't remember which.
Yeah, it's Sony. I don't understand why Sony feels the need to fucking poke Disney.
Well, in this instance, I'll defend them a little bit here because this is less about, boy, I think we can beat you, and more about no one who's going to see Maleficent is interested in Zombieland 2.
Oh, I am.
Okay, look, you and I would not have seen Maleficent if you didn't make me review it.
True.
You would not have seen Maleficent if you didn't have a daughter who really wanted to go.
True.
So let's assume that, again, left entirely to your own devices, there's not a lot of audience overlap here.
Fair enough.
So counter programming a big family friendly style fantasy movie with over the top zombie comedy sequel, I can see it.
Here's the problem, though. Zombieland. Look, there's something to be said for being the number one movie of your weekend. And, it's the thing that gets, like, the big advertisement. Like, regardless of... There's a lot of movies that don't do well. They don't make their budgets back. They're sort of financial failures. But they were the number one movie of that weekend, and that's the headline.
Look,
Godzilla, King of the Monsters is the number one movie in America for, like, 2 days.
Yeah, and every crappy Will Ferrell comedy will also have, like, on their big advertising push on the second week, the number one comedy in the world.
Yeah, right.
Like, it's mindless. It's pointless. It's stupid.
But they sacrifice that to go head to head with a Disney movie, and that's the thing. Like, I specifically use the phrase "why." I don't know why they're poking Disney.
Okay, fair enough. I'm curious about. Is there some reason they're not going next week?
I'll tell you. I mean, all I can do is tell you what's happening on Friday. So here's what they would have been competitive with: Black and Blue, which is again another
no overlap.
Okay, but that's also Sony, so they would have been competing with themselves.
Okay, so they sacrificed. They deliberately counter-programmed this so that Black and Blue so that a drama could have a weekend to itself.
But here's the thing. So the next weekend is Terminator and a bunch of other crap. The weekend after that is Doctor Sleep and a bunch of other crap.
Well, they don't want to go up again. You don't want to put Zombieland opposite Doctor Sleep. There's too much overlap there in terms of your audience.
Then you have Charlie's Angels and Ford versus Ferrari and The Good Liar.
I think if you really wanted to push it back, you might have wanted to try to do it there. Also, boy, I finally saw a Charlie's Angels trailer ahead of this movie. That looks like shit.
My daughter cannot wait.
I'm sure. Again, look, I forgive anyone under the age of 12 for being intrigued by crap like this.
Okay, December 6th. The only movie that's getting a wide release the weekend of December 6th is Playmobil, the movie, which I have not even seen a trailer for.
Yeah, but look what comes out the next 2 weeks. You're not getting anything other than your initial week if you do that.
For Black and Blue, who gives a shit? No one's going to see it.
No, not Black. Oh, sorry. I thought you're talking about moving Black and Blue and then moving Maleficent to 1 week later. Okay.
Zombieland.
Yeah, no one cares about. Look, no one cares
Zombieland.
about Black and Blue. Yes, I understand what you mean. Now I apologize. Yeah, no one cares about Black and Blue.
Right, that's my point. Like, look, there's nothing going on November 6th. You have a free weekend, basically, to get your movie to be number one. You can get some attention on it.
It wouldn't be number one.
Shut up.
Look, they'd wind up going the number one action movie in the country. Like, oh, piss off.
Or if they could have got, I mean, I can't imagine this, this wasn't ready well before September. Why not have released it in September? There were plenty of garbage weeks in September to have released this. Here, look. So not the week of It Chapter 2. That would have been a bad idea. The following week, okay, there was no Sony movie that weekend, the 13th, and your big competitors were The Goldfinch, which only like snobby film people saw.
No. Even snobby film people came away from that thinking, boy, that's pretentious.
And Hustlers, which I would have seen if I had had time.
Well, you also had you had Downton Abbey that week.
No, you didn't.
That's okay. Depending on what market you're in, that came out on the 13th.
Yeah, if you were in England, it came out in America the following week, which was Ad Astra, Downton Abbey, and Rambo. So that not a great weekend to have done that.
Yeah, there's a lot of.
Okay.
There was a lot of competition that weekend. How about the last weekend in September?
Yeah,
no
abominable.
Okay, yeah, there's no overlap between Black and Blue or Zombieland 2 and Abominable. Just none.
So that's my point. Like, there were plenty of a month early for Black and Blue, and leave Zombieland on its regular date. You don't have this problem. So again, I ask, what was the point?
I genuinely don't know. Look, Sony, hey guys, we're gonna make unless Disney moved this one. Like, hey guys, we're taking Spider-Man back. Move Maleficent. What, opposite Zombieland?
But that's the thing. Maleficent had to state first.
I know. I get, unless it was completely reactionary in that way, there was no reason for Sony to have scheduled it like this.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you're right. Maybe that's what this was all about. It was literally like provoking Disney because of Spider-Man. But they moved that date well before all the stuff with Spider-Man happened. So,
before it became public. That's
fair enough. Either way, Maleficent debuted number 1, Joker went from 1 to 2, and Zombieland debuted at number 3.
The number for Zombieland actually isn't all that bad. You might look at it at 3 and go, that's not great, but, I mean, again, a couple of things. One, I think Joker's eating into its audience a little bit.
Okay, I don't think anyone thought Joker was going to make $1 billion, and it's well on its way.
Yeah, that
fucking
one...
scary.
Yeah, that Joker's currently at, 700-some-odd million worldwide?
We'll know in a moment, but yeah, something like that.
737. It is number 8 worldwide on the year. Again, is it actually going to make $1 billion? Maybe not. It'll be close. It's probably going to finish ahead of Hobbs and Shaw, which, despite making $758 million, is just barely profitable after all the money they spent on that atrocity.
Yeah, that's technically a loss for Universal. In the same way Batman v Superman was a loss for Warner Brothers.
In all seriousness, if Joker winds up above Hobbs and Shaw, I'm gonna laugh so hard.
If Joker ends up making more money than Hobbs, somebody at Universal is going to throw themselves out the fucking window.
No, someone's going to be thrown out the window. Joker had a budget of somewhere between $55 and $70 million.
Oh God,
nobody has made $741 million.
Nobody and Warner. If Joker makes it to $1 billion, I guarantee you, no orifice is going to be safe from the executives at Warner Brothers who will just fuck anything that isn't moving. It's going to be a pantsless fucking executive parade.
Okay, and for the record, Hobbs and Shaw, again, the budget for the actual film was something like $200 million. If you factor in, and we kind of are for the purposes of this, all the advertisement that they did, it was well over $300. Again, anything less than $1 billion for Hobbs and Shaw is like technically a loss.
That's why I laugh when people talk about like, oh, the Rock is franchise gold, and you have all these like web shows or whatever that talk about, oh, put the Rock in it. The Rock is not a guaranteed success maker.
I mean, look, if they spend $100 million less on this movie, yeah, they're fine. At this point, they're quite happy. Like, if the budget for this thing is $100 million, and they spend another, $100 on advertisement and whatnot, then yeah, they're probably okay at this point. The fact that they went so hard with a $200+ million budget, well over $100 million advertisement campaign. Like, they needed $1 billion out of this to really be profitable.
They should have run it at the end of May. I don't think there was a whole lot. I mean, like, I understand everyone was like, just give Avengers a wide berth. It owned the month of May. There was, but by the same token, Detective Pokemon was actually fairly successful and was in the top 10 for a really long time. Despite the fact that Endgame, made almost $3 billion. So, I think if I'm Universal, putting it in August where, summer franchise fatigue starts to set in, maybe not the best idea. I don't know if I would have put it in July. July was a very heavy month. That you had Spider-Man, you had The Lion King, and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and just because I know it was there, I don't remember anything else being any decent that weekend. But you had Crawl.
Did you hear? Hang on, did you hear this thing about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
That he won't recut it for China.
Yeah,
they're offended by Bruce Lee. Yeah, who fucking cares?
Hey, look, there's two things about this that I'm going to say, just very briefly. One, the Chinese government is a horrible, despotic regime and has been for the last 50 years. I don't know why people are only kind of coming around to this now. It's a terrible government.
The water is also wet. What's your point?
I'm going to give Tarantino a bit of credit for not capitulating to unreasonable demands.
Okay, here's my only issue with that. Tarantino has always been sort of a weirdo outsider, fuck you guy. The fact that he's being a weirdo outsider, fuck you guy to China is well within his character. You're kind of patting him on his back for doing what he naturally does. It would be weird if he didn't.
Okay, then fine. Let me rephrase. I'm going to pat him on the back for not going outside of his character this instance because China and money.
Okay.
And second point, yeah, that's a lot of revenue that movie's going to miss out on. But like artistically, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is like an alternate history daydream. It's not meant to be an accurate representation of Bruce Lee. By the way, the fact that the only approved appearance of Bruce Lee as Bruce Lee in film is that not Enter the Dragon. It's something to do with the dragon, the Bruce Lee story, whose climactic battle sequence is Bruce Lee battling a samurai ghost in his dreamscape that loosely represents all of his father's failed ambitions for himself and his son. Yet you can piss off with your hagiography of that guy. Right? Bruce Lee's a deeply important person, not a saint. I said this when we reviewed the movie. Like, he did some really important things. He called out elements of martial arts culture that needed to be called out. He expounded simple ways of thinking. But, I mean, the fact that, every UFC moron is like, yeah, Bruce Lee, totally down, the first, pioneer of mixed martial arts. No, there's no actual evidence of this.
Okay. We need to move this on.
Continue with the money.
Thank you. So yeah, so I'm just gonna put a period on the end of that whole thing. I think Sony fucked itself for no good reason. Here's a hint to Warner Brothers, Universal, and Sony, because Fox is no longer a thing. Stop trying to go head to head with big time Disney movies. You're gonna lose. You're gonna lose every time. Just cut it out. There's so many other weekends. There's so many weekends that you can find success in. And it's not like I don't want Disney to buy Sony. I really don't. I don't want Disney to buy Paramount. I don't want Disney to buy Lionsgate. I really would prefer if Disney would stop gobbling up these other studios. I don't think it's good for the movie industry. I don't think it's good for movies. But when you make such bad decisions like this, and you keep provoking. And like, I love the memes out there of like Disney is Rocket Raccoon and Sony is the Winter Soldier, and he's like, how much for Spider-Man?
Not for sale. How much for the studio?
Right. It's like you're at this point, considering that it wasn't that long ago that there were rumors of Sony just selling off their movie division anyway. Quit fucking provoking the company. Then they have. Look, I don't want to sound like I'm a Disney psychophant and and defender here. I guess there's nothing inherently wrong with that, but people just inherently hate Disney. The ones that aren't worshiping at the ground.
Look, if
worshiping on hallowed Disney ground.
If you're not bending the knee to the mouse, then you have an irrational hatred of all things successful related to Disney.
Clearly,
and for some reason, there is no middle ground.
That's clearly cogent logic. But I will say this in their defense: Disney isn't perfect. They're having a hell of a time with Lucasfilm. Boy, is that a baby they didn't realize was going to be colicky. So. Like,
have you seen the final trailer for Rise of Skywalker?
I already have my tickets. Yes, I saw the trailer.
I watched that trailer, and I know people were like, "Oh boy, I got chills." Not shouting, not trying to throw shade at anyone. If you're excited, be excited. But C-3PO going, I'm taking one last look at my friends, at people he's known for like half a movie. Piss off.
Okay.
Like, you're not looking at Leia and Han and Luke. You're looking at these three schmucks whose names I can't even remember.
That's the Star Wars franchise saying goodbye to the fans, by the way. That's what that is.
I get what it is in a meta sense. Like, in all seriousness, that moment of, I'm saying goodbye to my friends. You've known these people for a week and a half.
Did you hear the thing that the future of Disney, they might just give up on the big screen altogether and start dumping all their content onto streaming services? That's the latest rumor. So when I see,
it might work.
Yeah. Okay, this is going to be the 1 hour podcast that goes 3 hours because we did everything but talk about the movie. Addams Family fell from 2 to 4. I can't believe how many people saw this. Like, I don't know how well it's done, financially. I hadn't looked that deep into it. More on looking at a movie's financials in just a moment. But I can't. Like, I didn't think anyone would go see Addams Family. Like, we went to go the night that I went to go see Joker. Like, there were people walking out of. They were like grown ass fucking adults at night coming out of the Addams Family.
Addams Family, again, as a property, goes back. I mean, look, I'm 34 now, as of 2 days ago. You
old shit.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Wait till you get to 40 and your body falls apart.
I am not looking forward to that. Anyway, point being, I'm a grown adult. I have positive memories of the Addams Family, courtesy of the two movies that were released, the one starring Raul Julia and Angelica Houston.
Oh, you're not talking about the porn, the Addams Family?
I was not aware that was a thing, although look, I assumed there was Addams Family related porn. Just because it's the internet?
There is, but the Addams Family holds a particular place in my heart.
Fair enough. Creepy heart.
Jesse and I do the "it fits" bit constantly since I taught it to him, which is a line from the Addams Family. Go on. I could talk about the Addams Family all day. We should do a review of the Addams Family.
I will not sully myself with that, sir.
Okay, go on.
Anyway, I have fond associations with that. I watched a fair bit of the television show when I was during like Nick at Night's run when I was a kid. So, I mean, Addams Family is somewhat bizarrely a multi-generational experience.
Yeah, it never really appealed to me. Neither did the Munsters, for that matter. But look, as you say, rock on, party hard, whatever whatever your phrase is.
I stole it from Boss Fruit, and it's Godspeed and Party On.
Sure. People like it. I didn't think it was a thing, and a lot of this IP, from yesteryear is very hit and miss. So I just figured, well, who'd go see? This would be another thing they dragged out of whatever, and they threw it on the big screen to try to make a quick buck. And I'm like, okay, fuck, it's being successful. Whatever, man. I'm glad people are having a good time with this. Gemini.
You know what? We need to do if we get these watch-alongs potentially going, mm-hmm. You and I need to do watch-alongs of the first two Addams Family movies.
Sure.
Because you've mentioned that, like, the best work of Joan Cusack's career is in Toy Story, and I agree. Her second best work is legitimately in Addams Family Values.
Okay. So Gemini Man fucking tanked.
Oof, boy, that thing cratered.
They have been advertising that thing since fucking January. And now it's finally here, and nobody gave a shit. That fell from 3 to 5.
Yeah, man, Ang Lee has no clout at the box office.
None.
And Ang Lee's a filmmaker that, like, people who study film don't know why he's not popular. Like, he's made these great movies. Like, okay, he's made a couple of good movies. Like, he made Brokeback Mountain, which got a lot of, solid movie, great movie. Arguably got robbed at the Oscars that year. Not going to rehash the debate, but there is that argument. He also made Hulk.
Yep.
Which...
He utterly misunderstood how to make a comic book movie.
And again, I've defended elements of that movie because I think it gets... Don't get me wrong, there's plenty wrong with it, but I think a lot of people miss what's wrong with it in favor of, it's not what I wanted,
Yeah, there's a germ of a good idea in Hulk. It's just done poorly.
Yeah, but he's not a blockbuster filmmaker. He never has been. And throwing his name up there is not guaranteed money. Will Smith, like, I imagine every time he gets into a car, has that sad song that has the line, remember when I used to rule the world?
That's
like,
that
just plays on repeat in his head. He has not been a legitimate box office draw as far as, Will Smith. People will see this for like 15 years.
I think, that's the thing. Like, he was in Suicide Squad, and Suicide Squad made money despite it being a piece of trash. And people are like, oh, Will Smith is back. Will Smith is the reason that made money. And it's like, no. It made money because it was fucking Suicide Squad.
That's not even true. Here's why that movie made money. Like, sure, a segment of them went to see that movie because of the IP. Sure, I'll buy that. Let's not be coy here. When you and I reviewed that movie, we were on Blog Talk and we did it live when we had the ability to do things live. We only kind of do now. And we had a bit of a thing where, if you can call in. That's the only movie review we ever got a call in on. And just for a guy to get his own kind of jollies off talking about Margot Robbie being an attractive woman.
Sure. And I knew that's where you were going with this.
That movie, in no small part, made money because people like Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn. Excuse me.
Yep. I wanted to let you finish, but I could have summed that up in just a few words. Suicide Squad was popular because of Margot Robbie's boobs.
She doesn't have. It was her butt. It was that shot of her like bent over at the waist in Daisy Dukes. That's what did it.
Okay. Abominable fell from 4 to 6. Downton Abbey 5 to 7. Judy 7 to 8. Hustlers 6 to 9. It Chapter 2 8 to 10. Parasite 15. Rose from 15 to 11.
I need to see that.
Jexy 9 to 12. Ad Astra 10 to 13.
Hey, do we have an open weekend? I want to review Parasite. Like I've heard nothing but great things about that movie. It's
a horror movie, isn't it?
I don't know. Like, I think partially, everyone that I've talked with has said who's seen it has said it's great, and then knowing me, they're like, and it's right up your alley.
Okay, no, it's a rated R drama.
I kind of want to see that. Like, I'm looking for showings that don't make me drive for an hour and a half to get to the theater.
Make Gavin go see it, and you guys can do it on the Casual Heroes.
I'm not philosophically opposed to that. I mean, look, Gavin just had a kid. Like, he's not getting to a movie anytime.
Oh, or you never know. Your other option is see if Alexis will do it with you.
Yeah, I'll see if anyone's interested, and I have to see if I can find it before it winds up on a streaming service, which I don't mind waiting for if that's the only legitimate option.
Rounding out the top 20, you have The Lighthouse, which debuted at number 15. Pain and Glory.
Another movie I would see if I didn't have to drive 90 minutes to get to the freaking theater.
Yeah.
The Lighthouse.
Jojo Rabbit, despite not playing anywhere near a movie theater that I knew of, which I wanted to see, actually. I wanted to see it Friday night. Yeah, it looks funny to me. Debuted at number 17.
Not fun. Why would you think... God. Look. I have a very Look, I am not opposed to dark humor like this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's actually a line in one of the trailers I saw, like near the end, when the kid sees a couple of the other Hitler Youth and is like, "Hey," and they haven't seen each other for a while, and it's like, "Oh, hey, yeah." They briefly reminisce in the middle of a war zone, and one of them goes, "Yeah, man, it's all coming apart at the seams. It's not a good time to be a Nazi."
So Jojo Rabbit.
I also hate Taika Waititi with like the Fire of 1,000 Suns.
Yes, we all know what you thought of Ragnarok. Jojo Rabbit debuted at number 17. The Captain at number 18. The Lion King. Jesus Christ.
Still there.
Fell from 13 to 19. And the Peanut Butter Falcon, 19 to 20. All right. Next weekend, as I said before, is Black and Blue and Countdown.
We'll be reviewing Zombieland.
Yup. We'll be catching up on the old Zombieland. And then the following week is Arctic Dogs, which is a cartoon, Harriet, Motherless Brooklyn, which features Ed Norton, and Terminator Dark Fate.
That is not like the existence of Edward Norton in a movie at this point is not a strike. It's not really a mark in its favor.
So I've heard nothing but good things so far about Terminator Dark Fate. People who have seen it say it's good. That the Terminator franchise is back, but
weren't there a bunch of morons who said that same thing about Genesis?
Maybe, but Genesis was such a convoluted ass movie that I'm sure if this one even remotely makes any sense, it'll be better than Genesis.
Look, you and I could shoot a Terminator movie in your backyard, and your son could walk across the frame half a dozen times, and we'd probably have something better than Genesis.
You're not joking. November 8th is Dr. Sleep, Last Christmas, Midway, which was initially on the schedule until I decided to give you your way. And then
look, you actually gave me my way twice this year. I don't know what inspired this bit of generosity within you.
And then the one movie my daughter has been looking forward to all year, Playing with Fire with John Cena.
Oh God, I had not seen a trailer for that. Again, there was one ahead of this movie.
I'm a good dad.
I have never wanted to kick John Cena in the crotch. and I sat through Super Cena as a wrestler. I dealt with LOL Cena wins for 18 months. I watched him bury Chris Jericho, and Kurt Angle in succession on Monday Night Raw. Like, I dealt with all the bad things that man did to the wrestling business as a wrestling fan on occasion and at the time. Like, I was not this angry at John Cena after he single-handedly buried the Nexus after taking a DDT onto exposed concrete. I watched this trailer and went, screw that guy.
So, like I said, I'm a good dad and promised my daughter I'd take her to go see Playing with Fire. I'm hoping that I can get a medical marijuana card and just be fucking high through that whole thing. I'm gonna play up various health issues.
Hey, cancer!
I was trying not to do that. That tends to make people uncomfortable, from what I've been told. But yeah,
look, if that'll work to give you the card.
Yeah, no, I'm totally walking into I'm done. The cancer hurts. Can I please have pot? And then just fucking be toasted through that whole movie. It's the only way I'll be able to get through it. Anyway,
if you're not inebriated somehow, or have suffered severe head trauma, or are a child under the age of 10, I don't know how you would have to walk out of that movie.
Yeah.
For huge stretches of time, just be like, okay, I need to breathe. I need something that isn't this.
So we are not doing Charlie's Angels. Instead, we're going to review Ford versus Ferrari, which actually looks really good. I'm really excited about it. Christian
Bale going crazy and chucking a computer system out of a car.
The following week, 21 Bridges, A Beautiful Day at the Neighborhood, which is the movie starring Tom Hanks about Mr. Rogers, and Frozen 2. I wonder what's going to win the weekend that weekend.
I'm really pulling for A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood.
You're
really
on fucking drugs.
Hang on. I said pulling for.
Yeah.
That's what I want. I am some dim, very stupid part of me is like, you know what? maybe people won't go see the crappy sequel bait. Maybe, I mean, you and I have talked about this. Frozen itself is not a good movie.
You're a lunatic. You know everyone's going to see Frozen.
Oh, okay, again. That's what I'm pulling for. Like the cynical realist in me. Oh yeah, like no, this is not a competition.
And then well, that's really it. I mean, right before Thanksgiving, there'll be Knives Out, which we're going to try to review, and Queen and Slim, which I would love to review, but boy, am I going to be alone on that one. So fuck it. Anyway, we were talking about.
Hold on, just a second. I need you to repeat that for me.
I would love to review Queen and Slim, but boy, will I be alone on that.
I don't. That doesn't make sense. Why would you want to see this?
Okay, you've seen the trailers for Queen and Slim?
Yeah.
You know my taste in television and movies?
I'm gonna make you say it.
Hashtag black folks.
There you go. Look, I saw 2 different trailers for that and went, look, Bonnie, like the Sam Peckinpah variation of Bonnie and Clyde. I am done. I am just completely, personally, over the romanticized view of murderous psychopaths because, boy, we don't like because we happen to be disenchanted with the authority and power at the time. It's utter shit. It is unreplicable at scale. Can we stop with this, please? You want a good movie about Bonnie and Clyde? There's one on Netflix. It stars Kevin Costner and Jeff Bridges, I think. It's called Highwaymen.
Yeah, I've actually seen it.
Good movie.
Yeah, it was good. Still doesn't have black folks in it.
Again, I understand. I knew why. As soon as you said, I really want to see Queen and Slim, I knew why.
So anyway, so all that is to say, Maleficent maybe does good for the next weekend or two, but by the time Terminator comes out, it's done. Whatever money it's going to make, it needs to, it needed to have made this past weekend and next weekend maybe, and then after that, it's gonna fall down the thing.
This is the kind of movie that is also somewhat built for international audiences. I think we've mentioned this about other films that are just, hey, they're not all that complicated. They're easy to translate and stuff. I don't just mean dialogue. Like, everything about this movie translates easily to everywhere around the world. It needs a lot of money. Again, this thing had a budget of $185 million.
Yeah.
It needs, $400 to $500 million.
Well, there shouldn't be anything about this that's offensive to our lord and masters in China, so it should be fine.
Piss on China.
All right. So here we go with our slaying of the reviewers.
Are you ready? No! I said, are you ready?
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
I'm going to read you a mixed bag of these because I just saw a fresh one that I was struggling with.
Look, you just find people who are bad at their jobs. I don't care what their stance on the movie was.
Terrific. Alberto Corona from Senza Cine. This is an original sequel, despite its imperfections. Full review in Spanish.
I'm going to assume this is a somewhat this is an issue of translation. Because otherwise that is just the blandest statement of like existence. It's an original sequel. I mean, it's not. This is a hodgepodge of every other fantasy movie you've ever seen. And otherwise, like, hey, this is a sequel, and they're not really drawing on other previously established material with the character. Like, that's it. How is that a sentence? Like, how is that your sizzle sentence? How is that going to hook people?
Ronak Kotecha of the Times of India. with widespread death and destruction. This isn't fucking Man of Steel. Calm the fuck down.
There's one battle sequence in a castle that suffers mild cosmetic damage.
With widespread death and destruction, this fairy tale costume drama is by no means a child's play. However, it has enough live-action magic to bring the big screen alive.
Yeah, no.
Rashid Irani, our good friend from the Hindustan Times.
Oh.
Hi, Rashid.
This moron.
It's got everything you'd want to see in a dark fairy tale. Evil witches, sorcery, and jaw-dropping visual effects. Shit! That's
No,
me
they're
ducking.
not-
That's me ducking as you throw things, by the way.
They're not jaw-dropping. Again, there's a couple of really good visual sequences in this movie. There are. I'm not trying to completely dump on it. But no, nothing here is like jaw-dropping to me. I don't know. Maybe you're more easily awed than I am, and I don't mean that to sound pejorative. Everyone reacts differently. Maybe what was presented here was enough to get you going mouth agape. It was not for me. Maybe I'm just too cynical. I don't know. I acknowledge that's a possibility.
I'm reading this one just because it validates my earlier opinion. Lee Patch of Herald Sun, Australia. All storytelling roads lead to an incomprehensible Game of Thrones light battle in the final act that is either very poorly staged or terribly edited. It is impossible to tell.
Yeah, I'm really not sure which of those two it is, or I mean, it's probably both, but I'm not sure which one is more to blame, because there's whole sequences that the physics of the physical layout of the battle stops making sense.
Here's one to twist your nipples. You in particular. You, Robert Winfree. Lift up
Fair
your shirt. I
enough.
want to twist your nipple.
No.
Lauren Veneziani of WBAL TV. Angelina Jolie and Michelle Pfeiffer make the Maleficent sequel worthwhile and fun.
Oh, God. How are you that stupid?
Does your nipple hurt?
No. Believe me, the migraines you give me are, in fact, localized to my brain.
Okay.
Again, I mean this in all sincerity when I ask about this movie. Outside of her name on the marquee, what does Angelina Jolie bring to this movie?
Is that a rhetorical question?
No. I mean, in some sense, yes, but I'm also asking you specifically because you're the only one here.
Oh, okay.
She doesn't do great acting. There's a bit of camera and screen presence to her in a few different sequences, but I wasn't lying when I said earlier, I'm not sure that you couldn't just write her out of this movie.
We were talking about Dark Phoenix earlier this year, and it just felt like, what's her ass? Mystique. Her real name.
Jennifer Lawrence.
That's the one. Jennifer Lawrence acts in this movie like she just didn't want to be there. I got the same impression from Angelina Jolie the more I think about it. Like, she just showed up, did her thing, started thinking about what she could do with the check, in terms of, like, buying nets in Africa and whatever else she does. And that's what got her through this movie. She just didn't seem to want to be there.
And again, I don't know if that's her, and I don't know if that's the script. Because she, again, by all accounts, she's the best thing about the first one.
Matthew Bond, The Mail on Sunday, UK. Pushing what's acceptable, particularly in a PG film. What?
Nothing.
This goes on.
No. Hang on. I have to refute that point first.
But there's still more to his point that he's making. So hang on.
Okay.
Pushing what's acceptable, particularly in a PG film, to the limit. This is a strong sequel, but definitely not for the very young.
Okay, shut up. The very young are the only people who enjoy this. Also, this movie bends over backwards to display no real violence. Again, how do the Fae kill people in this movie? They get tossed really high in the air, and then they fall off screen. How do the Fae die? They get picked again. They get snapped. Aurora crashes through a plate glass window with iron struts attached to it. And for those of you who've never been around the type of windows they had at this period in time, I really can't stress to you how sturdy they are. She crashes through one of those and has a couple of scratches. Again, you have the evil queen who tries to perpetrate genocide, and does she fall to her death even? No, she gets turned into a goat. This movie, again, bends over backwards to be as bland and subscribing to mass appeal as possible with anything that might have nudged its rating even a little bit. Just no.
So funny because I'm reading these as you're talking, and so many of them actually, like, this is one of the few times so many of these have made the points we made almost verbatim, including the guy that referenced the Lord of the Rings.
I always get wary of those situations because I dislike so many of these people and their opinions.
Yeah, stop agreeing with us. Stop being right.
It makes me wonder if I'm wrong. Okay, that's what it does. It doesn't make me think, oh, they're the blind squirrel who found a nut every now and then. It makes me go,
did I fucking miss the point here?
Yeah.
Well, that's okay. There's always Susan Granger to fuck it up for you.
Oh, God.
SSG Syndicate. Sumptuous fantasy sequel. Are you even trying anymore, Susan? Have you heard our reviews and have just fucking given up?
I don't think she ever tried to begin with.
Maybe. Oh, this is my favorite one so far. Natalia Ariani of The Movie Maven. Woo! A fantastic fantasy adventure blending thrilling action in a magical setting with a real-world inclusion message.
No.
So good.
Okay, two things about that. Again, first of all, no. You're wrong. Second of all, and some of this might just be me, okay? I'm going to acknowledge some of this might just be my personal taste. But is anyone else out there just kind of sick and tired of, well, boy, we can all just get along and live together? I mean, I'm not, like, encouraging, large-scale war or anything. I'm not in favor of this. But I'm just, as a consumer of media and some of these stories, and I do try very hard not to bring too much of this to bear when I didn't mention this at all when we talked about the review, okay? So I'm trying here. I'm just a little bit over the, well, we can all just get along, and it's only the one or so people, like, it's the person in power trying to consolidate and score more power, and they're the only ones who are evil, and even then it's only one of them. Everyone else is just happy to get along if they weren't being manipulated. That is such crap. And I understand it's an important message, and I'm not at all in favor of telling the small children who go to see this movie, you really can't get along with everyone. Because while that is true, that's not really, this isn't necessarily the point and place to try and get that message, to and get them used to the realities of the world. We don't judge people just based on, things they can't control. But I'm just a little bit over the, well, boy, we can all just get along, can't we?
All right, moving on.
This is in no small part, I think my stance on this is in no small part exacerbated by the movies that I have to see to review with you.
Matt Brunson of Creative Loading. This fucking catches me.
God, I hate this guy so much.
This Maleficent might be far from magnificent, but as a fractured fairy tale, it mostly gets the job done.
Okay, your poor use of alliteration aside, no, this isn't a fractured fairy tale, believe it or not. Like, this movie eschews the traditional fairy tale kind of dynamics in favor of generic fantasy, and they're not the same thing. But I don't know. I suppose if you write for creative loafing, you can just loaf.
Jennifer Heaton alternative lens. It absolutely has no right to be. But Maleficent, Mistress of Evil is a solid Disney blockbuster and a massive improvement over its problematic predecessor.
Okay, look. There's issues with the first one. I fail to see what you would categorize as problematic that isn't worse in this movie. Like, there's just so much nothing in this movie. It's so much nothing. God. I don't even know how to really respond to that.
Let's see. Melon Mahavangtrag of Schmagegi from Bangkok Post. I'm sorry, whoever you are. We managed to laugh and enjoy the film despite its muddled narratives. Sure. Good review.
I am okay, look. When you say we, I assume your small daughter.
I don't know who this person is or if they have children.
Again, the fact that they pluralized it, I'm going to assume.
Okay.
Otherwise, that makes no sense.
Rendy Jones of Rendy Reviews. The film faces a major identity crisis where it doesn't set any appeal for its audience while cloaking itself to be something that it's not.
You know,
Wait a minute. You know what? Forget that one. Jamie East of The Sun UK. Michelle Pfeiffer channeling her contemptuous Catwoman from Batman Returns is proper good, though. I'm telling you, man. We're more on point with this than we have been in any fucking review we've ever done.
Yeah, okay, Michelle Pfeiffer. You know, I'm not. You've got to exude some malice. How much malice? All the terrible things you wanted to do to Tim Burton during the filming of Batman Returns. I want you to release that into. That's what I want to see on screen. Like,
I'm really surprised Michelle Pfeiffer didn't go full Madeline Kahn. Flames on the side of my face, heaving, seething. That's what I would have done.
There's probably a take that's like that, and they just kind of went, you know what? If we're not gonna do other things to make this work, then we're just not gonna do it here.
Scott D. Pierce of Deseret News, Salt Lake City.
Okay.
Outside of Maleficent herself, pretty much everyone struggles to get out of their two-dimensional holds.
Oh, shut up.
No, they don't. And the grandiose finale doesn't feel like the dramatic payoff it clearly wants to be.
That's somewhat true for me, but yeah, the notion that, oh boy, Maleficent really is a fleshed-out three-dimensional character in this movie. I really can't stress this. There is no arc.
Yeah.
We talked about this. Like, no, that's not how this works.
Johnny Gazmonic. Fanboys of the universe.
Okay, Mr. Gazmonic. I'm sure that's your real name.
Who is this for? Who was asking for this particular kind of story? It's a question the film never definitely answers.
Okay. On the one hand, I think there's a bit of a point there. No, if this movie never gets made, no one's crying about the lack of a sequel to Maleficent, right? You and I both kind of agree on that.
Sure.
This movie was made for small children for their parents to take them and their friends to see. Like, there's very clearly a target audience here. I don't know what to tell you if you don't realize that.
Your grandfather, Joe Morgenstern, old man Morgenstern. Hey, how you doing, Joe? From
Why
the
isn't he dead yet?
from the Wall Street Journal. The big-horned heroine is played once again by Angelina Jolie in this dull sequel to the not-so-sparkling 2014 original. Thanks, Joe.
I mean, again, I question the degree to which half of that is even useful information. Like, boy, Angelina Jolie's back as Maleficent, as though the movie poster wasn't a giveaway. Like, I don't understand that.
I actually agree with this. Mark Dudgstick of Mark Reviews Movies. There are ideas and spectacles in search of an actual story. Yeah, not wrong.
Yeah, that's about right. I'm not even gonna get. I mean, and again, I even give the spectacle a bit of a that's kind of a rather than a woohoo.
Yeah, I'm going to read these back to back. The first one is Graham Tuckett of stuff.co.New Zealand. The other one is Sandy Angelo Chen of Common Sense Media. This Maleficent is in many ways an even better film than the first. And
It's not. In no way is this a better movie than the first. No way.
Powerful queens go to war in intense, dark fantasy sequel. Please tell me that was for, like, a short print in a newspaper somewhere, because it's the only way that makes any sense to me.
I agree. Also, oh god, I don't know if I want to jump down that particular rabbit hole or not.
Pablo,
You know what?
hang on.
Screw. No, hang on. I am.
Wait, before you do, Pablo O. Schloss of Clarin, a more adventurous version of Guess Who's Coming to Dinner.
No.
And ow, my head.
No, there's one scene that's an awkward political dinner. I can clearly now reference an entire film and a remake that were built around discussing racial tensions. This will be a thing I can do.
That was terrible.
Yes, it was. So much so I forgot the point I was going to make otherwise, and I'm just going to move on.
Utterly derailed you. Oh, that's funny. All right. Let's see. Neil Pond of Parade Magazine.
Oh, Parade is terrible. Don't do this to me.
Jolie is the big bird, the hot wings, the OG witchy woman that rises from the rubble of this hot mess fairy freight train wreck.
Oh, God. I mean, again, we actually talked about how she's not the best part of the movie.
Yeah.
I will say this, though. She's probably going to come out of this movie the least scathed as far as her career trajectory or whatnot. I mean, Michelle Pfeiffer's already, Michelle Pfeiffer at this point. Like, there's nothing really else to that.
I'm going to end with this one. And before I do, let me just ask. Did you actually see... You've read the Game of Thrones book, right? So you're aware of what the Red Wedding is?
Yes.
Good.
I know what the Red Wedding is. I knew what everyone was talking about. When the internet exploded, I went, "Oh, they must have got through this part of the book," because I knew that. Again, I knew that was a thing before the show was being made.
Okay. Julian Roman of MovieWeb. Maleficent, Mistress of Evil can best be described as Disney's Game of Thrones.
No.
Wait, this gets better. It's the infamous Red Wedding.
Not even close.
But with fairy tale characters. Angelina Jolie returns to theaters in a much darker and violent sequel.
This is not even close to a violent movie. I don't know why you bunch of morons are kind of getting to that.
But of all the things to reference in Game of Thrones, again, the torching of the Red Keep made more sense to me. The Red Wedding, how is this even approaching the Red Wedding?
It's not. It's not even close. A bunch of characters, many of whom were fan favorites, die horribly in that scene. A pregnant woman is stabbed repeatedly in the belly.
They are betrayed. Like I guess that's how they're doing it. Is the scene in the chapel or the church or whatever? Where
There's significantly better sequences of people being tricked into a church that has been set on fire to reference.
Sure.
Like, that is lazy. That is someone who has seen an episode or so of Game of Thrones, wanted to make a comparison, and was loosely aware that the Red Wedding was a thing. That's all it is.
All right. Roger Moore says it's appalling.
Roger Moore is somehow exaggerating the point.
All right. Kenny Langle. I promise I'd stop, but they're so stupid. I can't help myself. Kenny Langle, Arizona Republic. The cuddly creatures in a razzle-dazzle action are enough to make 2 hours disappear, but it's only Jolie's back-winged charisma that will rattle on in your memory.
Look, whatever you remember from this, if anything, is entirely up to you. I will remember none of it.
All right, that's the end. We're done. Tomorrow, Sean and I will review Insatiable. Jesse and I will review Lacuna Coil, Black Anima. Thursday, Sean and I will do an on-trial for From Dusk Till Dawn. Saturday night, myself and Robert Winfree will be doing coverage for Erickson Lubin versus Nathaniel Gallimore.
I don't know why you decided this was a thing, but...
Well, because you didn't want to do Shakur Stevenson versus Joette Gonzalez on ESPN.
Tell you what, let me look around and see which of those I will prefer to watch.
Okay, well they both airing start at 9, so either way, I can't do Maya versus Askren. I'll be at work.
I am aware, and look, that first prelim starts at 3:30 in the morning for me. Okay, I will be salty by the end of that, and then just sleep for 8 hours.
Great, I'll wake you up when the boxing starts. Next
You
Monday,
can try.
in honor of all things Halloween and zombie and scary, we're doing Blackest Night on source material. Speaking of zombies, I can't believe it worked out this way, actually. Myself and Robert Winfree will be reviewing Zombieland 2 on the 29th. I think Alexis is joining us for that one. And we've had some changes in the calendar for one reason or another. So no Metal Hammer of Doom the night before Halloween. Instead, Jesse and I will do a TV party for the black metal movie about the history of the band Mayhem, Lords of Chaos. And then Saturday, myself and Robert Winfree will be doing coverage of the Bad Motherfucker Championship of the World. Jorge Masvidal versus Nate Diaz, UFC 244.
You know, UFC 244 is a really good card, actually, all things considered.
And Sunday, November 3rd, myself and I believe Chris Bailey and I believe Chris Sheehan will be doing a review for Crown Jewel. Why are we reviewing Crown Jewel other than wrestling? Well, because Tyson Fury versus Braun Strowman and Cain Velasquez versus Brock Lesnar. No other reason to watch that show, by the way, except for those two matches.
Look, if you choose to indulge in the stupidity that is professional wrestling at the moment,
I do indulge. They do choose.
I can't stop you.
But why would you?
Because I think you're better off without it.
You can't tell me what to do. You're not my mom.
I just said I couldn't, and I didn't, and it's not entirely clear to me that even in a position to somehow authoritatively mandate that you not and be able to enforce that I would. I'm saying I think you're better off without it as a value sentiment.
Sure. You know, we're dedicating at least part of a week to the Wu-Tang Clan at the end of November. Did you know that?
Yet another thing I really wish you wouldn't do.
We're going to review the TV show and enter the Wu-Tang 36 Chambers album. It's named one of the great albums by the former Great Albums podcast. I want you to know.
Yeah, because the perspective of a podcast on the internet is the most important thing.
Says the guy on a podcast. All right, I'm done with
Hey,
drugs.
I am very aware of how little this matters. I do this because I enjoy it, not because it matters.
Terrific. Plug your shit.
All right, we referenced it a little bit earlier, but Saturday morning, starting at 5:30 a.m. Eastern Time, I will have coverage of UFC on ESPN Plus 20. They will be in Singapore. The card is headlined by Damian Maia and Ben Askren. You know, again, if you watch as much MMA as I do, there's some good fights on that main card. Michael Johnson and Stevie Ray's a good fight. Frank Camacho and Beneil Dariush Frank Camacho doesn't really have boring fights.
Stevie Ray from Harlem Heat.
I hate you. Stop it.
You know damn well that's not what I meant. Is what you're saying.
No. I meant what I said.
No. You're saying to me, you, Mark Radulich, know damn well that you didn't mean Stevie Ray from Harlem Heat.
Look, I constantly forget that Stevie Ray was even a thing. Well, look, people ask me, hey, wait, wasn't Booker T in a tag team? I could say yes, he was in Harlem Heat. Who was his partner? No idea.
Okay.
His real-life brother, that's all I could get. Half-brother. I don't know, one of those two. Anyway, Frank Camacho and Beneil Dariush is a good fight. There's a heavyweight fight that might not suck between Cyril Gahn and Don'Tale Mays.
Ugh, I'm so disappointed.
What?
I was really looking forward to Dos Santos. I was even going to try to cover that with you.
Yeah, that sucks that fell through.
No, I don't care anymore.
Look, no one cared about that card to begin with. The people who mustered up a F or two to give about JDS in 2019 now lost their reason to watch. Look, Greg Hardy's going to get smashed by a much better heavyweight fighter.
I'm sure. I hope he gets paid a lot to do it.
I hate you. And kicking off the main card, Muslim Salikov and Loriana Staropoli. Again, that's a banger, man. Those two don't have boring fights either. So, solid main card, actually, on paper. Sundays, I host the 411 Ground and Pound MMA podcast. This last week, we reviewed the UFC on ESPN 6, the death of Chris Weidman's career. Look, it was so bad, his father didn't even steal the mic from the guy interviewing him to scream, "This is still my boy."
Nice.
I don't mean to throw shade at Chris Weidman's father. That was just one of the funniest things I've seen in the cage. After that loss he suffered, his dad takes the mic from, I think it was John Anik. He's like, "This is still my boy." Like the result of a fight is somehow going to alter his genetic makeup.
You know dang well that's not what he meant.
I did, although, Yoel Romero hit him hard enough to maybe have done so. Anyway, we break down all the results from that show. We preview UFC on ESPN Plus 20, so get our picks for that card. And we talk about news of the week. Conor McGregor being investigated for a different allegation of sexual assault.
Yuck.
John Jones continuing to have beef with everybody. Missing out on yet another super fight, in this instance related to Chris Weidman. Crap, there was something else.
There was a kid who I worked with in a youth home whose favorite phrase, I think, was, "Got beef? Eat a pork chop."
Did you smack this kid?
I was not allowed to.
Were you tempted?
I'm still tempted.
You should find him and hit him. Just out of the blue.
This was 20 years ago, and he was maybe 13 or 14 at the time. But yeah, if I knew where he was now, so wherever in the world this was, I would absolutely just walk up to and hit him.
Walk up, smack him in the face, walk away. No context, no nothing. He's going to go through the rest of the next 4 weeks going, why did that strange man come out of nowhere and hit me in the face?
With a dead fish.
Yes.
Anyway, let me ask you a question.
All
You
right.
got beef? Eat a pork chop. I think that should be the new Radulich and Broadcasting phrase that pays. Radulich and Broadcasting got beef, eat a pork chop.
Look, if you can market it and people will actually pay, go for it.
Throwing it on a T-shirt. Somebody called Jesse Starcher's wife.
Mindy, I apologize for all the stupid ideas Mark throws your way.
Finish. I want to go to bed.
And then, yeah, next week we're reviewing Zombieland 2, which one of my brothers saw, and I asked him, is it stupid? His response was, yes, and then I had to clarify, is it deliberately stupid or just stupid? And he went, yes.
Hey, Sabotage, how many dead soldiers you want in this video? Yes.
So I'm looking forward to watching it. We're going to see how that plays out, how a sequel to a surprise hit, 10 years later plays. But, yeah, we'll be back for that, as Mark is up to his eyeballs in zombies next week. That'll be fun.
Lucky me. All right, folks. Thank you for
Big
this.
horror weenie.
Yeah,
I don't like the zombies.
I've watched plenty of horror this year. It's fine.
This is your year. Like next year when I say, hey, I'd like to review a horror movie. No, I watched plenty of horror last year.
I'm going to send you the list, and I'm going to tell you and Alexis and Jason, add whatever you want to this list so that I can figure out where to place it on the calendar. And I don't want to hear fucking shit after I publish the calendar. And you're like, why aren't we doing this? Mark won't let me do that. No, fuck all three of you. I'm giving you plenty of time.
I give you grief because it's just what I do at this point, not because I mean all of it.
I get that, but I'm just saying, you all have the opportunity to put anything on the calendar. So after the fact, that's fine that you give me shit. I'm going to give it right back with a bow on it. And on that note, be well, be safe, and behave.